Self-love isn't a warm bath and soft music. It's a decision you make when it would be easier to keep betraying yourself. It's the moment you stop begging for permission to exist. Stop shrinking so others can feel bigger. Stop calling your silence peace when it's really fear. There will be days you won't recognize the person in the mirror, days you'll want to go back to what's familiar even if it was breaking you. But self-love means you don't go back. It means you stand your ground, alone if necessary, and say, I am not my past mistakes, I am not your opinions, and I am done negotiating my worth. Because the most dangerous moment in your life isn't when you fail. It's when you forget who you are. And today, you remember. No one is coming to save you. That's not meant to sound cruel. It's meant to set you free. Because the moment you accept that truth is the moment you stop waiting and start acting. You stop looking over your shoulder for rescue and start looking within for strength. Life doesn't hand out personal bodyguards for your dreams, your peace, or your healing. If you don't protect your mind, people will occupy it. If you don't defend your time, people will steal it. If you don't stand up for your worth, the world will negotiate it down to nothing. Becoming your own protector means you stop outsourcing your safety to people who benefit from your weakness. Being your own protector is not about building walls so high that no one can reach you. It's about building standards so strong that the wrong people can't stay. It's knowing when to walk away from disrespect without explaining yourself, when to say no without guilt, when to choose silence instead of proving your point to those committed to misunderstanding you. You don't need permission to protect your peace. You don't need a consensus to remove yourself from environments that drain you. A protector doesn't wait for danger to become obvious. They recognize the early signs and act before the damage is done. There will be moments when protecting yourself feels lonely. When you realize that outgrowing certain people means losing them. When choosing yourself disappoints others who benefited from you choosing them first. That loneliness can trick you into thinking you made the wrong decision. You didn't. Growth often isolates before it elevates. And the discipline it takes to stand alone for a while is the same discipline that will attract people who respect you later. Temporary loneliness is a small price for permanent self-respect. You also become your own protector by controlling the voice inside your head, because the most dangerous attacks don't always come from the outside. They come from the doubt, the guilt, the old narratives telling you that you're not enough, not ready, not capable. Protecting yourself means shutting down that voice and replacing it with truth. It means holding yourself accountable without tearing yourself apart. It means forgiving your past without revisiting it as a place to live. You guard your energy, your focus, your future, because you finally understand that no one else will do it for you. And one day you'll realize you're no longer waiting to be rescued because you became the person you needed, the one who shows up, the one who endures, the one who refuses to abandon you when things get hard. That's real self-love. Not fragile, not loud, not performative. Solid, reliable, unshakable. You don't need a hero when you decide to become one for yourself. Self-love is not soft. It's strategic survival. It's not just bubble baths, affirmations, or pretending everything is fine. It's the hard, uncomfortable decisions you make when you realize your life depends on them. It's choosing sleep over scrolling, growth over distraction, truth over temporary comfort. Survival isn't always loud and dramatic. Sometimes it looks like walking away quietly, changing your habits when no one is watching, or admitting that the way you've been living is slowly draining you. When you start treating your energy, your time, and your mental health as resources instead of afterthoughts, you stop living on autopilot and start living with intention. Strategic survival means you learn yourself like you would study a map in dangerous territory. You identify what weakens you, what triggers you, what pulls you back into patterns that cost you peace. And then you plan accordingly. You don't keep pretending you're strong enough to handle what keeps breaking you. You adjust. You remove access. You build routines that support you on your worst days, not just your best ones. Because real self-love isn't reactive, it's preventative. It understands that burnout, heartbreak, and exhaustion don't happen overnight. They build slowly when you keep ignoring what you need. It also means accepting that not everyone deserves the same version of you. Strategic survival requires boundaries, and boundaries often disappoint people who are comfortable crossing them. You will be called distant, difficult, or changed. But what they're really noticing is that you're no longer available for things that harm you. You're no longer volunteering to carry emotional weight that was never yours. You're no longer sacrificing your stability to maintain someone else's comfort. Survival demands that you prioritize what keeps you standing, not what keeps everyone else satisfied. There will be moments when choosing yourself feels unnatural, even wrong. Especially if you were taught that your value comes from how much you endure or how much you give away. But survival is not about proving how much pain you can tolerate. It's about ensuring you're still here, still whole, still capable of building a life that doesn't require constant recovery. You stop glorifying struggle and start respecting sustainability. You stop chasing chaos and start protecting calm, because peace is not a luxury, it's fuel. Over time, this kind of self-love changes the way you move through the world. You become less reactive, less desperate for validation, less afraid of being alone. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started choosing wisely. You understand that your life is not something to gamble with, and your well-being is not negotiable. Strategic survival turns self-love into something steady and practical, something that keeps you grounded when everything around you feels uncertain. And in a world that constantly pulls at you, drains you, and distracts you, that kind of love isn't soft at all. It's the reason you endure. Stop abandoning yourself just to keep others comfortable. Every time you swallow your truth, every time you say yes when your mind is screaming no, every time you laugh at something that hurts you just to avoid tension, you leave a part of yourself behind. At first, it feels harmless. You tell yourself you're being easygoing, understanding, mature. But over time, you start to feel invisible in your own life. Resentment builds quietly because deep down you know you're being loyal to everyone except yourself. Comfort that costs you, your voice is not peace, it's self-erasure. You were not created to be digestible for everyone. Not everyone will understand your boundaries, your growth, or your refusal to tolerate what you once accepted. And that's the point. When you stop abandoning yourself, you disrupt the version of you that others benefited from. The one who stayed quiet, stayed available, stayed agreeable, no matter the cost. Some people will call you selfish when you start choosing yourself, not because you are, but because they were comfortable with your sacrifice. Your growth forces them to adjust, and not everyone wants to do that. Choosing yourself will feel unfamiliar at first. You might over-explain your decisions, soften your words, or feel guilty for protecting your time and energy. That guilt is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something new. You are breaking a pattern that taught you your needs were secondary. You are unlearning the belief that love must be earned through self-neglect. Real love, whether from others or from yourself, does not require you to disappear to maintain it. There will be moments when standing up for yourself creates distance between you and people you care about. That distance will hurt, but not as much as constantly betraying yourself did. Because when you abandon yourself, you teach others that your limits are flexible, your feelings negotiable, your presence guaranteed no matter how you're treated. When you stop, you redefine the terms. You show people that access to you is a privilege, not an entitlement. And those who truly respect you will rise to meet that standard instead of asking you to lower it. The strongest relationship you will ever have is the one you build with yourself. If you keep walking away from your own needs, your own values, your own instincts, that relationship weakens. But when you start honoring what you feel, even when it's inconvenient, you rebuild trust with yourself. You become someone you can rely on, someone who won't disappear when things get uncomfortable. And that kind of self-trust changes everything. It makes your confidence quieter but stronger, your decisions clearer, your presence more grounded. One day, you'll notice you're no longer exhausted from trying to maintain versions of yourself that were never real. You'll stop rehearsing conversations in your head, stop worrying about disappointing people who never considered what it cost you to keep them happy. You'll feel lighter, not because life got easier, but because you stopped carrying what was never yours. And in that space, you don't just find relief, you find yourself again. Your boundaries teach people how to treat you, even when you never say a word. What you tolerate becomes the standard, what you excuse becomes the pattern, and what you allow continues. People learn your limits by watching what you do when those limits are crossed. If you keep accepting disrespect, inconsistency, or dishonesty, you silently communicate that it's acceptable. Not because you deserve it, but because you haven't shown that there's a line that cannot be crossed. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about defining what you will and will not carry in your life. Setting boundaries often feels uncomfortable because it changes the roles people are used to. The version of you who always said yes, always showed up, always absorbed the impact, that version was predictable. When you start saying no, taking space, or refusing to engage in what drains you, people notice. Some will respect it immediately. Others will test it, push against it, question it, or try to make you feel guilty for it. Not because your boundary is wrong, but because it no longer benefits them. And holding your ground in those moments is what turns a boundary from a suggestion into a standard. Boundaries are also a form of self-respect in action. They show that you value your time, your energy, your mental stability enough to protect them. You stop over-explaining why something doesn't work for you. You stop negotiating with people who only listen when it's convenient. You realize that every time you reinforce a boundary, you strengthen your sense of self. It becomes less about convincing others and more about staying aligned with what you know is healthy for you. Respect from others often follows, but even when it doesn't, you still have something more important: respect for yourself. There will be moments when enforcing a boundary feels like loss. You may lose access to certain people, certain spaces, certain dynamics that once felt familiar, but what you gain is clarity. You begin to see who values you beyond what you provide, who can meet you with maturity instead of resistance. Boundaries filter your life. They remove what is built on convenience and reveal what is built on genuine care. And while that process can be painful, it prevents a deeper pain, the exhaustion of constantly giving more than you receive. Over time, boundaries change the way you carry yourself. You become calmer because you're no longer overextended. You become more present because your energy isn't scattered across things that deplete you. You stop fearing conflict because you understand that temporary discomfort is better than long-term resentment. People start to approach you differently, not because you demanded it, but because your actions made it clear that access to you requires respect. And the most powerful part is this: boundaries don't just teach others how to treat you, they teach you how to treat yourself. They remind you that your needs matter, your limits are valid, and your well-being is worth protecting. When you honor your own lines, you stop living defensively and start living deliberately. You no longer wait for permission to prioritize your peace. You simply decide that it matters, and you act accordingly. Discipline is the highest form of self-respect because it's the proof that you can trust yourself. It's waking up and doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Even when no one is watching, even when the reward is far away. Anyone can be motivated when it's convenient, when the energy is high and the path is clear. Discipline shows up when it's hard, when you're tired, when excuses would be easier to accept than effort. It's a quiet promise you keep to yourself over and over again, and every time you keep it, your confidence stops being something you hope for and becomes something you live from. Self-respect grows when your actions match your intentions. When you say you'll change something and you actually do. When you stop negotiating with the habits that are holding you back. Discipline is not punishment. It's structure. It's deciding that your future matters more than your current comfort. You don't skip the work just because no one will notice. You don't abandon your goals just because progress is slow. You understand that every small action compounds. That consistency builds a foundation strong enough to carry you when motivation disappears. And motivation will disappear. It always does. Discipline is what remains when feelings fade. There will be days when discipline feels heavy, when you question whether it's worth the effort. Those are the days it matters most, Because discipline isn't tested when things are easy. It's tested when life disrupts your routine, when emotions cloud your focus, when distractions offer immediate relief. Choosing discipline in those moments is an act of self-protection. It keeps you from drifting back into patterns that once made you feel stuck, powerless, or disappointed in yourself. It reminds you that you are in control of your direction, even if you can't control everything around you. Discipline also changes how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who starts and quits, someone who waits for the perfect moment, someone who doubts their ability to follow through. You become reliable, not to others first, but to yourself. That reliability builds a quiet kind of pride, not loud or arrogant, but steady. You walk differently because you know what it took to become this version of you. You don't need constant validation because your proof is in your habits, in the promises you kept when it would have been easier to break them. It also protects your peace in ways people don't always recognize. A disciplined life has fewer emergencies created by procrastination, fewer regrets caused by avoidance, fewer apologies you owe yourself. You handle things before they become chaos. You prepare instead of panic. And that preparation gives you space to breathe, to think clearly, to move through challenges without feeling like everything is collapsing at once. Discipline turns survival into stability. Over time, you realize discipline is not about restriction. It's about freedom. Freedom from constantly starting over, from being controlled by impulses, from feeling like your life is happening to you instead of being shaped by you. It allows you to trust the process, trust your effort, trust that even when progress is invisible, it's still happening. And that trust is the deepest form of self-respect there is. Because you're no longer hoping you'll show up for your life, you know you will. Healing is not about becoming soft enough that nothing affects you. It's about becoming strong enough that the wrong things no longer control you. When you've been hurt, there's a temptation to either harden completely or dissolve into something fragile just to prove you've changed. But real healing lives in the middle. It allows you to feel without drowning, to care without losing yourself, to move forward without pretending the past never happened. Your edge, the awareness, the instincts, the strength you built in difficult moments was not a mistake. It was survival. Healing doesn't ask you to throw that away. It asks you to refine it so it protects you without isolating you. There's a difference between being guarded and being wise. Before healing, your edge might have been reactive, quick to assume the worst, quick to shut down, quick to strike before you could be hurt again. After healing, that same edge becomes discernment. You don't ignore red flags, but you don't see danger where there is none. You don't punish new people for old wounds, but you don't hand out trust blindly either. You learn to pause, to observe, to respond instead of react. That calm awareness is still strength, just quieter, more controlled, more intentional. Some people will expect you to become easier to handle once you've healed, more agreeable, less likely to challenge what doesn't feel right. But healing doesn't mean becoming convenient. It doesn't mean lowering your standards or tolerating what once broke you just to prove you're over it. If anything, healing sharpens your understanding of what you will never accept again. Your edge becomes clarity. You don't raise your voice as often because you don't need to. You're willing to walk away. And walking away from what disrespects you is one of the strongest signals that you value yourself now. You also learn that your edge is not just defensive, it's directional. It pushes you toward growth, toward honesty, toward environments where you don't have to shrink to belong. It reminds you when you're slipping back into old habits, when you're about to settle for less than you deserve because it feels familiar. Healing gives you the courage to listen to that voice instead of silencing it. You stop trying to prove you're unbothered by things that actually matter. You allow yourself to care deeply, but selectively. There will still be moments when the past echoes, when old fears resurface, when you wonder if you're truly past it. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. Healing is not a clean finish line. It's a practice. Each time you choose self-respect over self-sabotage, presence over avoidance, honesty over denial, you strengthen both your peace and your edge at the same time. They are not opposites, they are partners. One day you realize you're no longer fighting everything, but you're also not tolerating everything. You're steady, you're aware, you're open, but not exposed, and that balance is powerful because it means you didn't just survive what hurt you. You learned from it without letting it define you. You kept the lessons, the strength, the awareness. You healed, but you didn't disappear in the process. You can be kind and still be unbreakable. Kindness is not weakness, and it was never meant to be. The world may have taught you that to be strong, you must be cold, distant, untouchable, but that's not strength. That's armor that eventually becomes a cage. Real strength is having a soft heart and firm boundaries at the same time. It's treating people with respect without tolerating disrespect in return. It's choosing compassion without volunteering to be taken advantage of. Being unbreakable doesn't mean nothing hurts you. It means nothing gets to define you or control who you become. Kindness rooted in self-respect is different from kindness rooted in fear. Fear-based kindness says yes when you want to say no, stays silent when you should speak, gives more than you have just to avoid conflict or rejection. But self-respecting kindness is intentional. It comes from a place of wholeness, not from a need to be liked. You help because you choose to, not because you feel obligated. You listen, you care, you show up, but you don't disappear in the process. And when someone crosses a line, you don't abandon your kindness. You simply remove your access. Being unbreakable also means you stop measuring your strength by how much pain you can endure. You don't have to tolerate cruelty to prove you're tough. You don't have to stay in situations that slowly wear you down just to show loyalty. Walking away can be an act of both kindness and strength. Kindness toward yourself and strength in the face of what tries to diminish you. You learn that protecting your peace is not selfish, it's necessary. Because once your peace is gone, your ability to be genuinely kind disappears with it, replaced by exhaustion and resentment. There will be people who misunderstand your balance. Some will test your limits because they assume your kindness means you won't push back. Others will be surprised when they realize you're calm but not passive, patient but not weak. You don't need to prove anything to them. Your consistency will speak for you. You remain respectful, but you don consequences exist. Not through anger or revenge, but through distance, through changed access, through the quiet decision that your energy will no longer be available where it isn't valued. Unbreakable kindness also changes how you see yourself. You stop feeling guilty for caring deeply because you know it's a strength, not a liability. You stop hardening yourself just to survive environments that were never meant for you. Instead, you become selective about where your kindness goes. You invest it in people and spaces where it can exist without being exploited, where it can grow instead of being drained. That selectiveness protects you without turning you bitter. Over time, you realize that the strongest people are not the ones who feel nothing, but the ones who feel deeply and still stand tall. You don't lose your warmth. You learn where it belongs. You don't lose your compassion. You learn to include yourself in it. And that's what makes you unbreakable, not the absence of emotion, but the presence of self-respect guiding it. You become someone who can face a harsh world without becoming harsh yourself, someone who can remain human without becoming fragile. Your past explains you, but it does not excuse your stagnation. What happened to you matters. The pain, the disappointments, the moments that changed the way you see the world. They all left marks. They shaped your fears, your defenses, your habits. But there comes a point where understanding why you are the way you are must be followed by deciding who you are going to become. If you only use your past as a reason to stay stuck, it turns into a cage instead of a lesson. You can acknowledge the damage without letting it dictate the rest of your life. It's easy to hold on to old stories because they feel familiar. They explain your hesitation, your mistrust, your reluctance to try again. They protect you from the risk of failing in a new way, but they also keep you from discovering that you're capable of more than what you survived. Growth requires you to step beyond the identity built around your wounds, not by pretending those wounds don't exist, but by refusing to let them be the most important thing about you. You are not just what hurt you. you are also what you choose to do next. There is a quiet comfort in saying, "This is just how I am because of what I've been through." It removes responsibility. It lowers expectations. It gives you permission to avoid the difficult work of change. But it also keeps you repeating cycles that no longer serve you. Healing is not proven by how well you can explain your pain. It's proven by the new standards you set for your life despite it. You don't have to move fast, and you don't have to have everything figured out, but you do have to move. Even small steps forward break the illusion that you're permanently defined by what's behind you. At some point, you have to stop negotiating with the part of you that wants to stay in survival mode. Survival kept you alive, but it was never meant to be your permanent address. Living requires different skills: trust, openness, discipline, hope. And those feel uncomfortable at first because they weren't safe before. But discomfort is not danger. It's unfamiliar territory. If you keep retreating to the past every time growth feels uncertain, you miss the chance to build a future that doesn't revolve around recovery. You are allowed to outgrow the version of you that was created in response to pain. You are allowed to change your patterns, your mindset, your environment, even if people who knew the old you struggle to adjust. They may expect you to stay the same because it keeps the dynamic predictable. But your life is not meant to be predictable. It's meant to evolve. The past can inform you without imprisoning you. It can teach you what to avoid, what to value, what to protect, without deciding your limits. One day, you realize that honoring your past doesn't mean living in it. It means carrying the lessons forward while leaving the weight behind. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What am I going to do with what I know now?" And that question changes everything because it shifts your focus from explanation to action. Your story doesn't end where the pain began. It continues wherever you decide to take responsibility for the next chapter. Choosing growth over approval every single time is one of the hardest decisions you will ever make because the world constantly pressures you to be liked, accepted, and understood. Approval feels safe. It feels like validation, like evidence that you belong. But if you make approval your priority, you begin shaping yourself around other people's expectations instead of your own truth. You start sacrificing your growth for comfort, your values for acceptance, your progress for applause. And in the long run, that constant negotiation for permission will leave you exhausted, unfulfilled, and disconnected from the person you were meant to become. Growth is rarely convenient. It asks you to sit in discomfort, to challenge old beliefs, to push past fear, and to embrace uncertainty. Approval asks nothing of you. It only rewards compliance. Every time you choose approval over growth, you reinforce the patterns that limit your potential. You stay in environments that are familiar but stagnant. You keep people close who only recognize the version of you they are comfortable with. You postpone your evolution to maintain someone else's comfort, and the price is higher than most realize. A life half-lived, a confidence compromised, a voice silenced. Choosing growth over approval also means accepting that people may not like the person you are becoming. That's a reality many avoid confronting. The friends, family, colleagues, or partners who resist the changes you make may not be ready for the version of you that prioritizes your values, your dreams, your integrity. Some may pull away, some may criticize, some may try to make you doubt yourself, but their discomfort is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of the shift you are making. And choosing growth means you keep moving forward, even when it's lonely or uncomfortable. The practice of growth over approval is not a one-time act. It's a habit, a mindset, a discipline. It's deciding in every small moment that your long-term vision matters more than temporary comfort. It's saying no when the easy choice is yes. Speaking your truth when silence feels safer. Investing in skills and knowledge that intimidate others but expand you. Each decision compounds. Each small act of prioritizing your development over validation strengthens your self-respect, sharpens your instincts, and increases your resilience. Growth becomes a self-sustaining force that no one can derail. Over time, you will notice a shift. Your confidence grows not from applause, but from competence. Your peace grows not from acceptance, but from alignment. You start to measure yourself by your effort, your progress, and your principles, rather than by the reactions of others. You learn that approval is fleeting and conditional, while growth is enduring and transformative. The more you choose growth, the more the world adjusts to your strength, rather than the other way around. And when you finally embrace that, you no longer live to please, you live to evolve. There will be moments in your life when standing alone is not just inevitable, it's necessary. People will leave, circumstances will shift, and you will find that the support you once counted on is no longer there. That is not a failure on your part, and it is not a reflection of your worth. It is simply life's way of asking you to step fully into yourself, to discover that your stability does not depend on anyone else's presence or approval. Standing alone is not a punishment. It is a test of how deeply you can trust the person you see in the mirror. Standing alone does not mean isolating yourself emotionally, but it does mean refusing to compromise who you are to maintain comfort or connection. There will be pressure to conform, to diminish your voice, to soften your edges so others don't feel challenged or inconvenienced. But when you agree to those compromises, you stand against yourself. Every time you bend to fit someone else's expectations, you betray the principles that define you. True self-respect demands that you honor your truth, even if it leaves you standing alone in a room full of familiar faces. There will be fear in solitude, fear that you are not enough, fear that your voice will not be heard, fear that life will feel emptier without external validation. But that fear is temporary. It passes when you act despite it, when you realize that self-reliance is not loneliness. It is freedom. Freedom to make decisions aligned with your values. Freedom to move forward without waiting for permission. Freedom to cultivate relationships that respect, rather than dilute, your integrity. The discomfort of standing alone is the price of never having to stand against yourself. You also learn that standing alone strengthens your intuition. When you are not constantly seeking consensus, you hear your own thoughts more clearly. You learn to recognize which voices belong in your life and which only serve distraction or doubt. You stop measuring your worth by how many people agree with you and start measuring it by how aligned your actions are with your principles. Independence does not make you rigid, it makes you discerning. It allows you to choose your alliances wisely and to invest in relationships that elevate rather than drain you. And there will come a day when standing alone no longer feels like a sacrifice. When you look back, you realize that the moments you feared were empty were actually full of lessons, full of clarity, full of proof that you could rely on yourself, endure discomfort, and protect your peace. You will see that those who matter most will meet you where you are, and those who do not were never meant to accompany you anyway. Standing alone is not weakness. It is a declaration that you are your own foundation, your own protector, and your own measure of worth. The person you are becoming is not built on convenience or popularity. It is built on unwavering self-loyalty, and that is the strongest place anyone can stand.